They admit that they're doing this intentionally and that they want people to hurt.
If Democrats continue to hold Americans hostage, there will not be enough funds to provide SNAP benefits for more than 40 million Americans on November 1st. Democrats are solely responsible for all of this unnecessary pain.
Why are we in this position? We're in this position because Senate Democrats decided that they were going to shut down the government despite the fact that the House voted to keep the government open.
Chuck Schumer is being destroyed by the shutdown, and the timing couldn't be worse for the very Democrats he claims to represent. Because while Trump is crushing Democrats in public support, Schumer chose to shut down the government, and in doing so, he turned his own voters into collateral damage. Now, nearly 32 million Democrat-leaning families who rely on SNAP are days away from waking up to empty EBT cards, not because the money ran out, but because Schumer blocked the funding bill to demand benefits for migrants instead.
The unnecessary pain, unfortunately, does not end there. Funding for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program known as SNAP, which provides food benefits to low-income families, is beginning to lapse this week in some states. If Democrats continue to hold Americans hostage, there will not be enough funds to provide SNAP benefits for more than 40 million Americans on November 1st.
America is suffering today because of one man's decision, Chuck Schumer's. The shutdown didn't come from some crisis no one could control. It came from Schumer choosing political theater over the basic stability of millions of American households. With the stroke of a pen, he froze the government and sent shockwaves straight into the kitchens, wallets, and dinner tables of working families across the country.
Democrats are solely responsible for all of this unnecessary pain. Why are they doing it? To give taxpayer-funded health care benefits to illegal aliens, some of whom are violent criminals.
Schumer had a clean funding bill sitting right in front of him, a bill that would have kept SNAP running, kept federal workers paid, and kept the government open. He could have signed it, passed it, and prevented every single problem we're seeing right now. But instead, he walked away. Why? Because the bill didn't include billions in benefits for migrants, including taxpayer-funded healthcare and long-term support programs that don't go to American citizens.
And even the Democrats have had enough of Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries' unhinged demands that are holding the government and the American people to ransom.
So Schumer did what Washington elites always do when they want leverage. He used regular Americans as the pressure point. He shut down the government knowing exactly who would feel it first: parents buying groceries, seniors on fixed incomes, disabled Americans who rely on assistance just to make it through the month. And the consequences of that choice are now landing squarely on the people Schumer claims to fight for.
People are getting hurt right now in their pocketbooks. Yep. They're really need help. So why not give them some help?
On November 1st, SNAP goes dry, and 40 million Americans are about to check their cards and see nothing. The fridge is half empty, the grocery list becomes a problem instead of a plan, and parents are forced into choices no one should face: skipping meals, stretching food that's already gone. And the people hit first are the same Americans Democrats love to claim they fight for: single moms, seniors, disabled Americans, veterans, working families hanging on by a thread. The slogans don't matter now. Hunger does.
Around 79% of those federal food assistance recipients are Democrats. So what that means is that almost 32 million Democrat voters are about to lose their federally funded food assistance, all because Chuck Schumer and the Democrat establishment.
Here's the part that makes this sting even deeper. The people losing food assistance are overwhelmingly Democrat voters. Nearly all of the communities that rely on SNAP benefits are in blue districts, the same neighborhoods Chuck Schumer campaigns in, speaks to, and claims to represent. These aren't political opponents or ideological rivals. These are his own supporters.
Shut our government down, you are going to harm millions of Americans. And why would you do this? Where's our leverage? It was wrong.
For years, Democrats branded themselves as the party of the working class. The side that stands with the single parent, the retiree, the service worker, the veteran trying to rebuild. But now, those same Americans are the first ones to feel the consequences of Schumer's shutdown. The very people who trusted him are now the ones paying for his decision.
Including 1.7 million children. One mother tells us making ends meet is already a challenge.
It shouldn't be that you gotta go in your pocket later to get cash that's gonna short your bill, and one bill won't get paid today, just to make sure your children and you have food.
And that's what makes this moment so revealing. Schumer didn't just cause disruption, he chose who would absorb the damage. The burden didn't land on lobbyists, political donors, or party insiders. It landed on households already stretched to the breaking point. He knew exactly where the impact would land, and he went forward anyway. This isn't a mistake. It's a decision with real human cost. And his own base is the one carrying it.
Deny the reality that Democrats gave Medicaid benefits to illegals, and they continue to seek to do just that.
Schumer didn't shut down the government because there was no money. He didn't do it because Republicans refused to negotiate. He shut it down because the funding bill did not include billions in new benefits for migrants, including taxpayer-funded health care, housing assistance, and long-term support programs that do not go to American citizens. This is a value system flipped upside down, where citizenship means less than political narrative, and loyalty to the country counts for nothing if you don't benefit the agenda. Chuck Schumer made a choice, and that choice was migrants first, Americans second.
It's going to have an impact on our neighbors. As you know, the federal workers just received their last paycheck last week, so we haven't really seen an increase yet. But as time goes by, and if someone also is out of SNAP benefits and they don't get the new ones in November, we will definitely see an increase in need.
And here's where the consequences stop being theoretical and become visible on the ground. The first states to sound the alarm weren't red, conservative, or rural. They were the deep blue Democratic strongholds that vote for Chuck Schumer every election cycle. Places like Massachusetts, Illinois, and New York. These states have already notified residents that November SNAP payments may not arrive. The panic isn't in Republican areas, it's inside Schumer's own political backyard.
Largest food bank is gearing up for a surge in demand as the government shutdown threatens to cut off food stamps for hundreds of thousands of Arizonans a week from today.
In cities like Chicago, Atlanta, and Los Angeles, food banks are already seeing demand surge by nearly 40% in just a matter of days. Shelves that were once stocked for emergencies are emptying before the month even starts. Families aren't preparing, they are already running out. This isn't a preview of what could happen, it's happening right now.
For the 13th time yesterday, the Senate failed to pass the House-approved bill to reopen the federal government.
And the contrast could not be more brutal. While Democratic governors hold press conferences and point fingers, a Republican-led state, Louisiana, has already stepped in. Louisiana has committed $150 million per month in state funds to keep families fed and prevent hunger from spreading across the state. No theatrics, no speeches, just action. So, on one side of the map, blue states scrambling, warning, rationing, and bracing for crisis. On the other side, a red state quietly feeding families without waiting for applause.
In 2018/2019, 61% more than 3 in 5 Americans blame Trump a great deal for that particular shutdown. You come over to this side of the screen, look at this. It's a different world. It's a different world. 48% of Americans blame Trump a great deal for this particular shutdown.
For years, government shutdowns have been political disasters for the party in power. The media usually points to the White House, public opinion sours, and support collapses. That's exactly what happened in 2018 when more than 60% of Americans blamed Trump and his approval rating took a hit.
About Donald Trump shutdowns, net approval rating, we're talking 20 days into it. In 2018/2019, Donald Trump's net approval rating was already falling. The shutdown was eating into his popular support. It was down 3 points already at this particular point and would fall considerably more. It was very much on the decline. You come over to this side of the screen, this shutdown hasn't eaten into Donald Trump's support at all. His net approval rating is actually up a point in terms of his popular support.
But this time, the response is entirely different. Even CNN was forced to acknowledge it. Polling shows that Trump's approval has actually increased, and the share of Americans who blame him has dropped by double digits. In other words, the public isn't buying the old script anymore. They watched what happened. They saw who walked away from the negotiation table. They saw who tied American benefits to a list of demands for migrants.
So the bottom line is this. The first shutdown during Trump's first term, 2018-2019, was hurting Donald Trump. This one is not hurting him at all. There's no real reason Donald Trump might say, at least when it comes to popular support.
The narrative that Democrats relied on for years, blame Trump, benefit politically, simply isn't working. Schumer isn't just losing the argument, he's losing his own voters, and the media can't shield him from the fallout.
Senate Democrats decided that they were going to shut down the government despite the fact that the House voted to keep the government open. And I have to be honest, Tony, it's actually not all Senate Democrats. To their great credit, a number of moderate Democrats voted with Republicans to keep the government open last night.
And here's where the blame lands with precision, because this wasn't every Democrat in the Senate. J.D. Vance made it clear a group of far-left lawmakers inside Schumer's caucus is the one holding the country hostage. Moderate Democrats actually crossed the aisle and voted with Republicans to keep the government open. There was bipartisan agreement on the table. The shutdown could have ended right there.
Unfortunately, it was one faction of one branch of government, the far-left faction of the Senate Democrats, who decided to shut down the people's government. And to your point about what's going to happen now, there are critical, essential services that the people rely on that are going to suffer because of this.
But Schumer didn't let it. He sided with the most hard-line faction in his party, the faction that demanded funding for migrant benefits even if American families paid the price for it. And that decision turned millions of ordinary Americans into leverage, not lobbyists, not billionaires, not political consultants, regular families. So what we're watching is not Republicans versus Democrats. It's something much worse, a radical faction versus the country's basic stability.
But we're going to be out of money on November 15th. And, for our military not to get paid is a disgrace. The other thing that's happening is this is starting to eat into the economy, starting to slow the economy, and we're also starting to see there's a problem with air traffic control, so it's starting to slow down our nation's travel.
The crisis doesn't stop with food assistance. In just a few weeks, military pay runs out. The Treasury has only enough temporary funding to cover service members through early November. After November 15th, the men and women who serve this country will be expected to continue working with no paycheck coming in.
The leader of the caucus that is refusing to open the government said, quote, "Every day gets better as the shutdown continues." Ask the air traffic controllers if every day is getting better, Senator Schumer, and they will tell you absolutely not.
And this is where the illusion breaks. The party that spent decades claiming to defend working families is now the one pushing those same households toward empty refrigerators and unpaid bills. And when November arrives, millions of his own supporters won't need headlines or commentary to understand what happened. They'll feel it, and they'll know exactly who did it.